Have you ever stopped to think about how nations really manage on the world stage?
Mm.
Balancing those old established ties with this push for new influence. It's quite a diplomatic high-wire act.
Yeah.
Well, today, that's exactly what we're getting into. India's really dynamic evolution in global diplomacy. We've gone through a lot of material for you, detailed foreign policy analyses, insights into their strategic partnerships, the whole lot. So our mission today, basically to unpack the key parts of India's international relations. We'll look at strategic partnerships, multilateral stuff, economic and cultural diplomacy, tech, and yeah, the challenges too. We want to give you a really clear, concise picture of how India is navigating this, well, pretty complex global scene.
Yeah, and what's so interesting, I think, is that India's story gives us these fascinating insights into how a country becomes seen as, a responsible global player and a voice, a really strong voice for the global South. It highlights how they juggle these diverse relationships while pushing for changes in global institutions. So this dive, it's not just what India is doing, but really why it matters for everyone else.
Okay, so to really get a handle on what India is doing now, we kind of need to look back, right? Let's touch on the historical roots. Starting with the Nehruvian era, say 1947 to 64. Nehru's initial vision, it was famously about non-alignment, especially during the Cold War.
Staying out of the superpower blocks.
Exactly. And a key piece of that was the Panchsheel Agreement with China in 54. Those principles of peaceful coexistence.
Right, but that non-alignment foundation, it's really shifted over time, significantly. India's moved towards what many people now call multi-alignment. And it's more than just a name change. It's a pragmatic adaptation to how the world works now, much more multipolar.
And under Prime Minister Modi, you see this manifesting as a more, maybe assertive diplomatic approach.
Definitely more assertive, more pragmatic. It's less about avoiding blocks and more about engaging with multiple partners, multiple groups to serve India's own interests.
So that assertiveness is not just talk. You see it shaping their big strategic partnerships. Let's take the U.S. That relationship has genuinely become a comprehensive strategic partnership.
Right, particularly strong on defense.
Yeah, really strong defense ties. You've got agreements like COMCASA, CASIE. These allow for, secure sharing of classified info, better military interoperability. That shows a huge level of trust, a big shift for India.
Definitely.
And beyond defense, there's cooperation in space, cybersecurity, counterterrorism, tech investments, things, semiconductors, AI. Plus, India's role in the Quad, that's crucial for the Indo-Pacific.
And don't forget the 2008 Civil Nuclear Agreement. That was a massive milestone, really opened doors.
Huge. But even as those U.S. ties deepen, India is carefully managing its traditional link with Russia.
It is. Russia's still a major defense partner. Think about the S-400 missile systems. That shows Moscow's ongoing importance as a military supplier.
Still buying key hardware.
And they cooperate in energy too, nuclear oil. Plus, they work together in forums like BRICS and the SKO. It's a tricky balance, you have to say.
Oh, absolutely. A real masterclass in keeping different doors open. Now, looking west, the EU and the UK, the focus there seems very much on trade and investment.
Yeah, big economic focus, but also cooperation on climate change, green energy.
And migration, education, links those softer connections are important too. And free trade agreements are high on the list. The EU-India FTA talks are back on track after a long pause.
And the India-UK one, they're aiming to triple bilateral trade. Ambitious.
Very ambitious.
Yeah.
Then there's Japan, a huge development partner for India, right? Infrastructure, high-speed rail.
Exactly. And critically, they cooperate a lot in the Indo-Pacific context. They both share concerns about, China's assertiveness there. They're working together for that free and open Indo-Pacific.
And France, too. That's become a surprisingly strong defense partnership. The Rafale jets deal is a prime example.
Right, and cooperation in space, nuclear energy, they seem quite aligned on Indo-Pacific strategies as well.
So with all these global partnerships building up, how does India manage all of that while also dealing with its own often tricky neighborhood? That seems like the toughest part.
It really is. Managing global ties while keeping things stable close to home, that's the core challenge, isn't it?
Okay, so let's zoom in on the neighborhood. South Asia, with countries like Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal. India focuses on things like economic aid, sharing electricity, water resources, cultural connections.
There's SAARC, theoretically, for regional cooperation.
Theoretically, yeah. But it's pretty limited because of the ongoing tensions with Pakistan.
Right. With Sri Lanka, India provides development aid, there's delicate diplomacy around the Tamil issue, and of course crucial maritime security cooperation.
But then Pakistan. Relations there are frankly still incredibly tense,
Mm.
driven by terrorism concerns, Kashmir, border issues.
Very little formal diplomatic progress happening there.
Very little. Afghanistan's another complex one. India had invested a lot there before.
Infrastructure, education, yeah.
But since the Taliban returned in 2021, it's been more cautious. Mostly humanitarian aid, kind of a watch-and-wait approach.
And then the big one, China.
Yeah, it's such a paradox, isn't it? They're massive trade partners, huge economic ties.
But at the same time, you have these serious, sometimes violent border tensions. Daklam, Galwan, those weren't small incidents.
No, direct military clashes.
Yeah.
And beyond the border, there's clear competition for influence, in the Indian Ocean, across Africa.
Yet they still engage in forums like BRICS and ESCO. It's like, cooperate where you must, compete where you will. A lot of underlying mistrust.
So given all these complex bilateral ties, how does India use the bigger multilateral stage? That seems crucial to their strategy.
Absolutely crucial. Multilateral engagement is a cornerstone. Take the UN. India is a founding member, a major contributor to peacekeeping,
Always have been.
and a very vocal advocate for Security Council reform. They've been pushing for a permanent seat for ages, arguing the council needs to reflect today's world.
Makes sense. And they're active in climate talks, too, like the Paris Agreement, always pushing for the UN system to be, well, fairer, more representative.
Exactly. Then you have BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. India's a key player there.
Right, promoting alternative development models, the New Development Bank.
And really using it as a platform to push for a multipolar world order, more South-South cooperation, developing countries working together more.
That focus on the Global South really came through when India hosted the G20 summit in 2023, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The New Delhi Declaration really championed issues important to developing nations, digital public infrastructure, climate finance. It was a big moment for India's leadership credentials.
And we mentioned the Quad earlier with the U.S., Japan, Australia. That's focused on the Indo-Pacific. Security, tech collaboration, supply chains.
It's not a formal military alliance, but it's definitely a key strategic grouping.
Then there's the SKO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Includes Russia, China, Central Asian states.
India uses that platform too, partly maybe to balance China's influence in Eurasia and also for regional counterterrorism efforts.
And finally, the Commonwealth. More historical ties there from the colonial past.
Still a useful forum, though, for cooperation on things like education, democracy support, development programs among its members.
So if you take a step back, it's clear that India's diplomacy is really tightly woven with its economic goals. It's not just about politics, it's about prosperity, too.
Completely intertwined. Look at their trade policy. Active in the WTO, often defending developing country interests, especially on things like agriculture subsidies.
And they're negotiating FTAs like crazy. The EU one is revived. The UAE deal signed in 22 boosted trade massively.
Yeah, over $31 billion just from that UAE deal in the first year. Talks ongoing with the UK, Australia, where the ECTA is already helping, and Canada.
And that expected e-fair agreement,
Yes.
potentially bringing $100 billion in investment. That's huge.
It is. And notice the shift post-2020. There seems to be more focus on trusted trade partners. It's not just about market size anymore.
Right, there's a geopolitical angle. Reliability, shared values seem more important now, maybe for supply chain security.
Exactly. And energy diplomacy is vital, too. As a major oil importer, India has to engage with OPEC, Russia, the U.S.
But they're also pushing hard on renewables. Co-founding the International Solar Alliance, that was a big statement.
A huge initiative aiming to scale up solar power globally.
Beyond the sort of hard power of economics and geopolitics, India's got significant soft power too, right? Culture, diaspora, technology.
Definitely. Think about International Yoga Day. Getting UN recognition with support from 177 countries, that's turning culture into a diplomatic asset.
And Bollywood, of course. Its global reach is undeniable in promoting Indian culture, plus all the cultural festivals, exhibitions.
And the diaspora is key. Around 30 million Indians globally, big communities in the U.S., Gulf, UK, Africa. They act as cultural, even economic bridges. Events like Pravasi Bharatiya Divas aim to keep them engaged.
Educational links, too, through places like the IITs and IMs. They have global reputations.
And tech is increasingly part of this picture. India is in the Global Partnership on AI, involved in talks about digital sovereignty, data rules.
There's a big domestic focus on data localization, cybersecurity.
And maybe most interesting is how they're exporting the India stack, that digital ID payment system, offering it to the Global South as this open source model. That could be a real game changer for financial inclusion elsewhere.
Definitely one to watch.
Okay.
Okay, and finally, climate change. India is clearly taking a more proactive role here, too,
Yes, co-founding the International Solar Alliance, as we said, but also being very vocal on climate justice.
pushing richer nations to bear more responsibility financially, given historical emissions.
Right. They've committed to net zero by 2070, and they're promoting this mission lifestyle for environment globally, trying to encourage sustainable habits individually.
And involved in the Coalition for Disaster-Resilient Infrastructure, too.
So a lot of positive momentum, a lot of activity. But let's be real, India faces some serious challenges too in its diplomacy.
Absolutely. The China rivalry looms large. It's not just border clashes. It's a broader competition for influence regionally and globally.
And the conflict with Pakistan remains a major block. Terrorism issues, Kashmir. It makes normal diplomacy incredibly difficult, almost intractable sometimes.
Domestically, you sometimes see trade protectionism slowing down FTA progress, right?
Yeah.
Concerns about local industries getting hurt.
Yeah, that creates internal pressures. And that non-alignment legacy, while offering flexibility, means a constant, tricky balancing act between powers like the US and Russia.
Trying to maintain strategic autonomy without upsetting key partners. It's a fine line.
And lastly, the leadership of the Global South. India wants to be that voice, but it's competing with China and others for that role. It's not uncontested.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you?
Well, India is really a complex, constantly shifting global role. It's a testament to its ambitions as a major rising power and a significant voice for the Global South. It's genuinely a fascinating case study in juggling diverse interests on this constantly changing world stage.
Yeah, and if you connect it to the bigger picture, India's journey, from that initial non-alignment to today's multi-alignment, it really shows something crucial about modern diplomacy. You have to be adaptable, dynamically adaptable. Which leaves us with a thought for you to ponder. As India keeps navigating all these intricate relationships, this unique balancing act it's performing, what kind of impact do you think that approach will ultimately have on the future of global governance, on international stability? Something to think about.